Hi, I'm Peyton, and I did my project on Moses. I believe that Moses had an INFP personality type. But before I tell you why I think that, we first have to remember who was Moses and what was his story. Moses was a prophet. He was adopted by an Egyptian princess and grew up to be a lawgiver and leader of the Israelites. According to the book of Exodus, Moses was born in a time when his people, the Israelites, an enslaved minority, were increasing in population. And as a result, the Egyptian pharaoh worried that they might ally themselves with Egypt's enemies. Moses' mother secretly hid him when the pharaoh ordered that all newborn Hebrew boys were to be killed in order to reduce the population of the Israelites. The pharaoh's daughter found the child in the Nile River, placed in a basket by his mother, and was adopted and grew up with the Egyptian royal family. After killing an Egyptian slave master who was smiting a Hebrew, Moses fled across the Red Sea to Midian, where he encountered a burning bush. And within that bush, the voice of God called out to Moses. The voice said, "Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Exodus 3, 5, and 6. At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. God instructed Moses that he is being sent by God to set the Israelites free from Pharaoh. God said that he had heard their cries, and Moses is to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. Moses was skeptical as to why God would have him be the one to set the Israelites free, but God assured Moses that he would be with him the whole time. Moses returned to Egypt as God instructed, but could not speak eloquently, so God allowed Moses' brother Aaron to speak on Moses' behalf. Pharaoh would not let the Israelites go, so God sent plagues every time Pharaoh denied Moses and Aaron the Israelites' freedom. The Pharaoh denied Moses 10 times, so God sent 10 different plagues each time, just as Moses had warned Pharaoh. The plagues go as follows: blood in the river. The land and the Nile were covered in frogs. Dust turned into lice and gnats. The creatures came in swarms that tormented the Egyptians. Pestilence of livestock. The Egyptians broke out in boils. And finally, every firstborn son in Egypt died. After all of this, Pharaoh finally let the Israelites go. Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, but the rest of the journey was not easy either. In order to get to their final destination, Moses had to split the Red Sea in order for the Israelites to cross. They were then based in Mount Sinai, where Moses received the 10 Commandments from God. As prophecy told, Moses and the Israelites wandered the desert for 40 years before reaching the Promised Land. Here's why I think Moses was an introvert, making his first letter an I. Introverts get their energy from being alone or in small groups. From the beginning of the story, we learn he does not like to be the center of attention. He does not talk much and is a bit unsure of himself, assuming the role of the Israelites' advocate. In Exodus 3:11, Moses pleads with God, asking, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" And when Moses is faced with his insecurity of speaking, he says, "The Israelites would not listen to me. How then should Pharaoh heed me, a man of impeded speech?" However, God allows Moses' brother Aaron to speak for Moses. So although Moses does end up facing his fear, it is with the comfort of his brother. Both public speaking and being in leadership can be very difficult for introverts. Although Moses did step up and accomplish these roles that God had for him, the way he dealt with his fears leads me to believe that he was introverted. Also, Moses often secluded himself as well to meet with God. He was able to do this because he was an introvert. He once secluded himself for 40 days to meet with God and pray. Moses preferred interacting one-on-one or in small groups, which allowed him to easily have these periods of time alone with God. Ecclesiastes 9:17 says, "The quiet words of the wise are much more heeded than the shouts of a ruler of fools." Perhaps Moses' introverted tendencies benefited him as a leader. Here's where I think Moses is intuitive, making his second letter an N. Intuitive people are curious. They can see things as a big picture and like to know how everything connects. They often are investigative and want to know why things are the way they are. When Moses encountered the burning bush, he wanted to investigate why the bush was burning. Moses thought to himself, "I will go over there and see the strange sight why the bush does not burn up." Exodus 3:3. Or the sensing trait will be more inclined to simply intake the information that there is a burning bush rather than questioning why it was burning. When God instructed Moses to set the Israelites free, he questioned God, saying, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" Exodus 3:11. Moses wondered why God wanted him to go to Egypt and how he would fit into the picture of what God had planned for the Israelites. Looking at the big picture and how everything connects is also an indicator of someone portraying the trait of intuition. Here's why I think Moses is feeling, making his third letter an F. Feelers make decisions based on personal values and how their actions might affect others. They are often warm and empathetic. When making the decision to obey God and return to Egypt, Moses likely turned to his feeling of genuinely wanting the Israelites to be free and the feeling of wanting to please and obey God. Moses was facing a murder charge in Egypt and knew it would be a risk to return there. He also was insecure about his speaking and did not want to address Pharaoh himself. Logically, for if he were a thinker over a feeler, it might not make sense for Moses to return to Egypt upon God's request. But I believe it was his feeling and conscience that led him to the decision to return. Another example is when Moses became angry with the Israelites, he smashed the tablets with the 10 Commandments on them. This is an example of Moses acting upon his emotion and feelings. Here is why I think Moses is perceiving, making his fourth letter a P. Perceivers are flexible and spontaneous. They often see deadlines as negotiable and like to improvise. We see Moses act accordingly a number of times. First, when God asked Moses to return to Egypt, although there was a murder charge over his head, he is flexible and spontaneous and obeys God. When he is supposed to speak with Pharaoh but can't, he is resourceful and improvises by having his brother speak on his behalf. When Moses is promised the promised land but has to wander the desert for 40 years, he is flexible with the deadline he had planned in his head. So what is an INFP? INFPs are nicknamed the mediator. Their strengths: they are loyal and devoted, sensitive to feelings, caring and interested in others, works well alone, values close relationships, good at seeing the big picture. Their weaknesses: they can be over-idealistic, tends to take everything personally, difficult to get to know, sometimes loses sight of the little things.